Okay. So yesterday we spoke about uh, class and objects, right? And yeah, this is the one, correct? Now what I'll do is I will take the same set of classes and I will put it here in different file. Okay. So you have uh, class books, okay, and you have two function. Books has one init, one print info, and print total. Now see, you also need to give details about the books, right? When you say add book to the library, which library you want to add, right? Now, what happens is you might have multiple things which you might want to add to library. For example, this is for book. You might have separate class called magazine, let's say. So I'll have a separate class for magazine because magazine needs to have different kind of uh, data, right? So class magazines, okay? And then let's say I'll say total max equal to 0. And you have, will have, let's say, same stuff, exactly same thing. Now, here, and instead of saying magazine will not have author, right? So magazine, let's say, will have ISSN number, let's say. So I'll say self dot ISSN equal to ISSN, right? And here I'll say ISSN of the book is. Okay. Now see, there are some properties, right, of class and objects. Okay. What are the different properties of class and objects? The first thing is your encapsulation. Properties of class and objects. The first is your encapsulation. Then you have inheritance. Then, any idea? What do you have? No? What are different properties? No one? You guys have done some programming before, right? Okay, so you,
Polymorphism.
sorry,
Polymorphism.
polymorphism,
Mm.
and last one is abstraction.
Yeah, abstract.
Okay, so these are the four important properties. Okay, now the encapsulation is what we have already seen. So what we say is encapsulation. Okay, so when you let's say for example list, okay, or for example this one itself, when we are using this book class, right? Now when you are using book class or you are using list, you don't have to worry about how data is initialized, how data is printing. You only call from the user perspective, you only call the respective method, right? So I want to add, I will simply say list dot append. and the value will get added to the list. I don't need to know how it is doing. Is it how many lines of code it is there, what it is doing? You don't need to know, right? We don't need to know. That is called encapsulation. So the first properties of class and object, the reason why class and object is done is that you want to hide the information details from the user. You don't want to, okay, give information details. For example, when you drive a car or two-wheeler, or you use TV, for example, right? We only know, okay, this is power on button, this is to change channel. You don't have to know the mechanism of TV, right? So if you press power button, what happens? Okay, how does, which circuit breaks? What happens? Why does TV get switched off? And when you press the power button again, it gets switched on. We don't have to know the mechanism. We just need to know, okay, I click here, this is what happens, and that is enough for you, right? So when you're riding car or bike, you know, okay, this is accelerator, this is brake, this is clutch. That is it. You don't need to know the mechanism of how accelerator works. You need to know what happens when you press accelerator. That's it. That's what you need to know. You don't need to know how those mechanism works inside, right? Those are all encapsulated, hidden from you. So classroom objects, okay, the purpose is that from user should find it easy to use. Okay, user should not have trouble using it. That is called encapsulation. Okay, so you have encapsulation there. Okay, so it is providing or making data available as a single unit. Now you have um, inheritance. So inheritance is about inheriting the properties of one class by another class. Inheriting properties of one class by another class. Okay, so you have, if you look at this case here, we have magazine class and we have books class. Now, both of these has title and cost. ISSN is different and here author is there, right? But rest of the two are same. So instead of having a duplicate value, can we have a common class? Okay. Can we have a common class? And both of these would inherit the properties from that class. So I'm going to create, okay, class library content or whatever. And here I'm going to use init. Okay. And I don't have to increase the content. Because content is different, right? So let them handle it differently. Now here you need title and you need price. You don't need ISN and because these are common for both. So instead of repeating it twice, I am doing it only once in the class here. And here, okay, what I will do, I will only handle ISSN. It takes three values, okay, because when you create a magazine, okay, you need to provide three values. Same thing here in the book, I will remove title and I'll remove price. Okay, then how do we call this? How do we call this? So first of all, you have to say that magazine, okay, is inheriting the properties from library content. I have to first indicate that, okay, magazines inherits properties from library content. So you create a bracket here and type library content. Okay, you put this is for magazines, so I need to go down. So it means magazine gets all the properties of the library content. So library content is anyway, okay, it's a common class, okay. And okay, so when you say book and bracket library content, you're saying that books will have access to library content. So now, okay, book has that in it. Okay, so we have to specifically call init. Okay, so how do we call init here? So I'm going to go to init here and I will say library content dot init. Okay, first value is self. Second value we should pass is title and then cost. Just to make sure that, okay, price, right? We call it as price. Just to make sure title and price are in the same order, right? So, yeah, price, title and price, that's it, okay? Why the order? Okay, just to check if two values are already added here, right? Title and price, okay. So, here, this order, right? Title and price. So here also you have title and price. Now, same thing we have to do for magazine. Okay, that's it. So whenever we are calling magazine, library content will be called and title price will be added. And now when you print it, okay, the title price from library content is available here. It will not, so it will not tell that, sorry, I don't have access to title or cost. Okay, so for adding, it's fine. Okay, it calls and value gets added here. But when you're printing also, these are available, right? Same thing here. So now when I go to here, our name equal to May, I'm saying M1 equal to magazines. And I need to pass three values. Okay, order is important. In what order are we passing? We are passing title, author, and price. Title, ISSN, and price for magazine, correct? So magazine, let's say I say 19,800 and ISSN I'll give, okay, this is ISN and magazine name I'll say, let's say I give some here. Now when you run it, okay, it's running different file. Absolutely no error, right? It has run. Now, when I call m1.printinfo, all the values will be available, right? Same thing we will do to book one equal to books. And here you have title, Python book, author, let's say Virat, price, let's say 299. Now you say b1 dot print info. Print info will print. Now print info is common. Why can't we put print info there? Okay, we can put print info there, right? But see, print info content is different. Okay, so magazine has ISSN and this has, so in this case they are different. So I'm not going to put them in a common in the this thing. But if they were exactly doing same stuff, I could have put it in the library content as well. Okay, so what we just did, we we created a new class and two other class inherited the properties from that main class. So just to put it in the context, I'm going to move to Paint. So what we did, we created one class here and we create another class here, right? Now we created one class, library content, and we say that this is a parent class. Okay. Now, when you say this one bracket, okay, that means this becomes derived class or child class. Okay. So this is your derived class or child class. right? See, in your Aadhaar card or PAN card, right, your parents' name will be written. On your parents' card, will your name be written? No. Right? So only child class will happen. So when you say bracket library content, it is enough to tell that library content is the parent child of the given child class. Okay? You know, child parent class need not have reference to the child class. Okay? So this is what we did here. Now, Python does not restrict you to have, okay, how many parent class you have, how many child class you have. Okay, you can have one more class here, and this can be parent class, right? You can have one more class here, and this can be parent of these two, right? So if in this case, if let's say A and B are parent, so in the bracket you will put A comma B. You will put A comma B. So this is how you can create any number of child classes, any number of parent classes, any levels of child and parent class. Right? I can have one more class here. So this is C, D, E, F. So C you will say A comma B. In E you will say C. That means you are saying C is parent class of E. F can have E here, indicating E is the parent class of F. You can have any levels of child and parent relationship. Make sense? Okay. So, okay. So this is how you declare. Now, this is about declaring the parent and child. What are the properties of these? So, remember a few things. All the properties, that means your variables and functions of parent class will be available to the child class. Okay, so see, we created init, right? Init was available to child class. All the properties of parent class will be available to child class. All the properties of parent class will be available to child class. Right? That's the first property. All right? Um, okay. So for to C, in this case, A and B both are parent class, right? So all the properties of A and B will be available to C. E is child class of C. So all the properties. So when you say all the properties of C, it includes properties of C plus properties of A and B, because now A and B properties are also part of C's property. Okay, so available here. Now let's say if you have a so even if here if you have a function or method which is print info, and this also has print info. Okay, now you say child class dot print info. So child class print info will be called. In case you have the same property, then okay, then child, okay, if child has same property, child's property will be called. But if child does not have the property, it will go and check in the parent class. Or parent class has the property, so then parent class property will be called. Okay. But if you have it, if child class has it, then child's property will be called. So let's see an example here. I go back to same example. In the library content, I'm going to add function called as print data, right? And I will say print data from library content. And I will have one more function called print info, right? It's print info, right? Yeah, print info. And I will say info from library content. Right? Now you see your parent class has two functions, two methods, print data and print info. Now when I go and call Okay, here I'll say m1 dot print info. m1 dot print data. See, info, okay, b m1 dot print info, okay, we have already anyway called here, isn't it? Now, m1 has print info, correct? M1 has print info, then which print info will be called? M1 print info only will be called. But print data, M1 does not have. Maxine does not have print info, but its parent will have. So in that case, print data of parent will be called. So if you see here, print info is calling from child class only. Here, these three lines. But print info or print data is not in child class. Then it will go and look in the parent class, and parent class, you know, value will be called. This is the property of parent and child. And not only M1, even B1 will have access to print data because B1 is also child class of print data. B1 is also child class of library content. So you see, data from library is printed. Okay. Then we talk about accessibility. What if parent does not want its members to be values to be accessible by you, by the child? Parents say, no, I don't want. So there are three types of accessibility that we generally deal here. We have public, private, and protected. Public, private, protected. So if you declare a variable name, just like var, it becomes public. So, okay. So here, let's say you have print data, right? Print data, okay, I have created as public. See, there's no underscore before. Okay. So now when you declare a value like this, then it is available outside the class. But if parent says, no, I don't want to make it available outside the class, then you go ahead and put double underscore here. Double underscore, okay, will make it private. Now, if M1 tries to call a double underscore, okay, see, it says exit code 1. Magazine object does not have print data. Okay, so to make any variable private, you have to add double underscore before, not after. Okay, only before. Before and after double underscore has a different meaning, inbuilt meaning. Correct? So you don't have to do it after, only before. Okay, before if you put double underscore, it means that you are not allowing even the derived members to access. Okay, so that uh, that member, whether it's variable member, I'm saying, okay, so it means it could be your variable or your function, both, or method, right? Both you can do it, public, private, protected. In Python so far, protected is not implemented. Okay, protected means only the derived class can use the protected member. Outside the derived class, you cannot use. Public can be used by anybody, okay? Public members can be used by anyone, but protected means only derived class. But concept wise, it's there, but protected is not strictly implemented in Python. So that's why protected, it behaves like public only. You can, it behaves practically like public, but concept wise, it's there. Dual underscore, it will not be visible down. Okay. So for example, if I go and make this as single underscore, where is this? Okay, it will not be accessible in the main, but it will, when you run it, it will not throw error. Okay, but private is implemented. Private and public are implemented. So when you make a member private, those members are not accessible outside the class. Doesn't matter whether it's derived class or not, you cannot access it outside. Okay, this is what we say. Um, you know, you can restrict the accessibility. If parent can say, no, I will not give you my TV or whatever you want. Then they'll put double underscore before. Okay. Okay. So this is about accessibility. Then we spoke about polymorphism. Polymorphism in Python is slightly different compared to C, C++, Java, or those programming languages. In C, C++, Java, you can function. Here you can have multiple print info. One print info with no parameter, one print info with one parameter, one print info with two parameters. They will be treated differently by Java or C++. But Python, it is not there. Python says that in a class, you can have only one variable or one function with the same name. You can't have two functions or two methods with same name. Okay, it does not allow. What it means is like print info. So print info will exist in child class also, direct class also, and parent class also, base class also, right? So which is possible. You can have multiple forms in derived class and base class, right? But Python has a rule. It knows from which one to pick, from which class to pick. Is that clear? That is called polymorphism. You can have same function with same, you can have two functions with same name. They are in different classes though, not like Java that they can be in same class. Okay. So that is your polymorphism. Okay. Now, we spoke about abstraction and encapsulation. See, encapsulation, we discussed that it is about hiding the information, right? I don't want to tell you how append is implemented. You just call append and your work will be done, right? Encapsulation talks about implementation hiding. Abstraction talks about implementation hiding, right? The protected and private, these are like your abstraction, right? Now, let's say you have yeah, I mean, um, let's say, okay, so let's take an example. Let's say you want to implement a certain method in both library, sorry, in books and also in magazine. You want it to implement a certain method. Let's say print info only. Then what you can do is you can go to parent class and you can write a function. And in that function, in that method, you don't do anything. When you don't do anything, then what happens? Like you can say, okay, sample, or something you write, right? So let's say here I go, okay, and here I'm saying def display something. Okay, just a dummy method I'm writing, and I'll say print do nothing. Now what happens when you call these M1, right? M1 dot, see you have display something. And when you run it, what happens? It says do nothing. right? So in a way, what you have done, you are forcing all the derived classes to have display something function, because since you have written in the public in the parent, okay, people who's using the class will be able to access it, right? And you don't want user to have do something as output. So you are forcing that, okay, you have to have a correct implementation of display something in magazine or in books. So they are different implementation, but sometimes user might forget. Like let's talk about area, calculation of area. You have a parent class called figure, and you have rectangle, triangle, and something else. Let's say rectangle and triangle as derived class. So you will declare a dummy method called calculate area in parent. Okay, it's dummy because the formula for calculation of area, okay, is different in rectangle versus triangle. So I cannot write common. If I could write same example, then I would have done it in the parent class only. Then you don't have to write in child class. But since you want these child classes to have that calculate area, so you will write something in the calculate area in the parent, and you will say do nothing. Now what happens? Okay, if you don't implement, your user is going to get wrong value, right? Because the calculate area is a do nothing, right? You'll be like, why do nothing, right? So in a way, you are forcing the derived classes to have an implementation for these methods, right? So in a way, you are asking to, okay, you are asking the classes to implement, right? That's what it's one of the example of abstraction. Purpose is that you are forcing the derived classes to have a body code, right? So these are the properties of your classes. And with that, we complete our discussion on class. Okay. Now I want you to, write a class to implement, okay, to implement all the properties of a library, right? So you will have two classes, not books and magazine, but you will have books and let's say members. Okay, so library will have members and books, right? Library will be able to, so, and all the common thing like issuing a book, you have to access to both books and the members. So that will become your parent class, right? So will you do that? Now, let's talk about one more concept here. We have few minutes. So let's talk about one more concept of accessing files, reading text files. Okay. So how do you read text files? So let's say you have some data. Okay, we will learn to create a file also. Okay. And we'll create a text file and then we will read that file. Okay. So okay, so here you see when you talk about files, you are going outside the scope of Python, right? And when you're going outside the scope of Python, whether you're talking about reading text file or connecting to database or reading HTML file, okay, you need to have something called as connection. You need to establish a connection, isn't it? You need to establish a connection to that text file first. So how to establish the connection? You need to know where the file is. First of all, the location path. And second thing is you want to make connection as a read only or write only or read write. Okay. So we call it as mode. So I'm going to talk about working with files. So you have modes like R, which is read. You have W, which is write. You have append, A, append. Difference between them is when you open the data in read, you can only read it. You can't edit it. You can't write it. When you open in write mode, you can only write it. You can't read the content. Because the moment you say write, it will delete all the existing content. Your file will become blank. But if you want to maintain the old content, then you have to open in append mode. So when you're opening in write mode, be careful. Okay. All the content of the file will be deleted. All the content of the file will be deleted. If you want to maintain the existing data, then you have to open in append mode. So that's the difference between append and write. Write will delete the existing content and you can write fresh. The moment you say write, content is gone. Okay. Read, write, and append. Now, why read and write has different options? Now you see, when you open a file for writing, only one person will have access to write, right? But multiple people can read it. So if everybody starts writing for even for reading, others will not have access. So that's why it says, okay, you open in read mode, you can, file is say shared location, multiple people can open in read mode. But if one person tries to write, then nobody else can write until this person saves and closes the file, right? That's why the consistency in the data, right? Otherwise, if two, three people opens it and I make some change something, you change something, then it will all become right. It will all become a mess. So only one person is allowed to write to a file, right? That's why read and write is separate. Okay, and when you say write, it means both write and append. But if you want to open for read and write, and if you want to open for write and read, then you have an option called as R plus, W plus, A plus. R plus means read and write. W plus means write and read. Okay, so what is the difference between read and write and read? The main difference is, okay, when you want to open in write mode, let's say W mode, write mode. Okay, existing file may not be existing. I want to write something. Okay, you can write on a blank file, isn't it? You don't have to have an existing file. But when you open in read mode, you need to have an existing file. You need to have existing file, right? So let's see how we do it. Now let's say I want to open, okay, let's create a new file, okay? We'll use we'll use relative path. Relative path means, okay, with respect to where your PWA file is, with respect to that, file will be created. So if I do not give any path, file will be created in same location. So I'm going to say file name equal to, today is 17th. So I'm going to say 17th December.txt. Okay. Now I need to connect to this file. So if I say file object equal to open, file object open, and I give file name. Okay. If I do not give the mode, by default, it means read mode. Now you have to close the file. When you open it, you need to close the file. Okay. Now when I run it, what happens? Error. No such file or directory exists because we do not have such file. And when you try to read the file, okay, you cannot read it file because the file does not exist. If I try to do R plus also, same problem. because I'm saying read and write, correct? Same problem. Now, if I do W plus, I'm saying write and read, then see, no error. And instead, a file is created here. You see, 17 December.txt is created here. Okay, so that's the main difference. Otherwise, there's no difference between R plus and W plus. Okay, so I've created a file. Now I need to write to it, correct? Right? I need to write to it. So I'll just show you two examples today. Tomorrow we'll do it in detail. We will write. So for example, I say file object dot write, right? And here I will use triple quotation because I can write in multiple lines, isn't it? I will say twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, let's say. Now I run the program. Now I can double click and open it here to see twinkle, twinkle, little star got added to txt. Now what happens if I write it again and again and again and again? Nothing will happen. Why? Because when you say write, old content is deleted and new content is added. So every time you run it, old content is deleted and new lines are added. Now if I make this as A plus, append plus. Now, so see, I run it only one time, right? Now open the file. See, this is the previous content and this content got added now. I go here and run it again. See, content got added here. So append will keep on appending, okay, previous content. Now you want to read it? Of course, you can read it using read command. So I'm going to say here content equal to file object dot read. Okay. And then you print the content here. And you run it. Oops. Now, what happened? What mistake I made here? File object dot read. Okay. Okay. So so what happened is when you are writing it, okay. So first we are doing the write, correct? First we are doing the write, isn't it? So when you write, what happens? You are at the last page. Okay, I give you a book and I tell you to write down. So you are writing it. And once you stop writing, where you will be? You will be on the last dot, right? There's nothing more to in front of you. Now I'm asking you to read it. There's nothing there to read, isn't it? You are already in the last part of the content, right? So there's nothing to read there. So what I have to do? I have to tell you read from beginning. So you have something called as file object dot seek. File object dot seek method will go to whichever page number you say. If I say 60, it will take me to the beginning of the content, beginning of the file. Right? Did you understand? So let me talk about what I'm saying. Let's say I'm writing the file, right? Okay, I'm writing. Once I'm done, I'll be here. My cursor is here. Now you're telling me to read the content. There's nothing to read here, right? I'm already here. So there's nothing. I'll tell you, go to the beginning of the file. That is seek 0. 0 means beginning. I can say seek 1. Seek 1 means first character. Seek 2, second character. I'm saying go to file seek 0. That means I'm telling you to go to the beginning. Now I will say read. Then you'll be able to read entire thing, right? This is what is happening. And now when I go and I run this seek 0, you'll be able to see the entire content here. Okay, so this is the purpose of seek. So you have read, you have write, and you have seek. Okay, tomorrow we'll meet and we'll talk about read lines, and write line. Okay, you can write multiple lines, you can read multiple lines, you can read single line. Any question before we end?